Welcome, brave ones. Tonight marks a new chapter for our channel, a commentary series, where we don't just watch horror animation. We peel back the skin of each story to expose the rot beneath, share perspectives, and connect through the darkness. This isn't only my analysis, it's our space to question, to discuss, and to build a community that finds meaning in fear. Our first descent, the terrifying true story of Han, a woman whose dream of beauty twisted into a nightmare that devoured her body, her mind, and perhaps her soul. As you watch, ask yourself, what price would you pay to be adored, and how long before the mirror stops reflecting you? And remember, what you're about to see is a fictional nightmare, not a documented truth. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, share this with the fearless, and tap super thanks if you support this dark journey. Now, let's watch the video.
To whoever finds this letter, I have always hated myself. I was never a striking beauty. My features were plain, unremarkable. People said my face lacked sharpness, that my eyes were too small, my jaw too round. In a world where appearance dictated fate, I felt invisible. I sought answers in the whispers of fortune-tellers, and each time they confirmed my greatest fear. My face held no promise of fame, no fortune written in my features. You do not have the destiny of a star, one told me, peering into my face with quiet finality. Those words echoed in my mind for years, fueling an obsession that would eventually consume me. I wanted to change, but they told me it would take more than just a simple fix. My naive, foolish self, desperate and full of determination, believed them. I was young when I first stepped into the clinic. It was before the turn of the millennium, when cosmetic surgery was still crude, its promises far greater than its reality. I was naive, believing that a scalpel could carve perfection. The doctor assured me that beauty was just an injection away. I did not question him when he plunged the needle into my skin, filling my face with substances I could not name. At first, I felt nothing but excitement. My skin stretched tight, my chin more defined. I thought I was becoming the woman I had always dreamed of. The first few days, I admired my reflection, running my fingers over my sharper jawline, my fuller lips. I could almost believe I was beautiful, but the changes did not stop. My face began to swell, grotesquely ballooning beyond recognition. The tightness became unbearable, my skin straining as if it would split. My cheeks puffed unnaturally, my forehead bulged, and a strange numbness crept over my features. I awoke each morning to find my reflection had twisted further into something monstrous. The more I tried to hide it with makeup, the more it became clear this was no normal reaction. Panic set in. I sought out other clinics, desperate for help. They examined me with clinical detachment before delivering the verdict. I had been injected with cooking oil. Cooking oil. The words rattled in my skull. I could not process them. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was stare as they explained that the oil had seeped into my tissues, impossible to remove completely. The horror was unbearable. I tried to undo the damage, but every attempt at correction only made it worse. More surgeries, more injections, each one a desperate attempt to erase the nightmare staring back at me in the reflection. My skin, once stretched too tight, now sagged in strange places. The tissue swelled unevenly, my cheeks grotesquely large, my lips stiff and misshapen. My nose, once small, had thickened, losing its definition. The more I fought against the transformation, the more it consumed me. As my face distorted further, I became unrecognizable. The skin lost its shape, stretched and sagged in unnatural ways. My features no longer aligned. My cheeks swelled unevenly. My lips twisted into a permanent grimace. I remember the horror in my boyfriend's eyes when he last visited. He could not hide his disgust, no matter how much he tried to feign sympathy. After that day, he stopped coming altogether. Soon, no surgeon would touch me. They all shook their heads, their pity sharper than any knife. It's too late. Nothing can be done. But I refused to accept their words. I did not dare show my face in public. I avoided the outside world as much as possible, locking myself away in my darkened room. I could not bear the stares, the whispers, the disgust written on strangers' faces. But even in isolation, I could not accept my life in such ugliness. Those doctors, who earned fortunes sculpting beauty, had no solution for me. If they could not save me, then I would save myself. I turned to the streets, to the black market, to syringes filled with liquid nightmares. I no longer cared what was inside them. If it promised to smooth my skin, to restore my beauty, I took the risk. Alone in the dark room, I treated myself with the needle of hope. My face became a melting mask, my features distorting into something not quite human. My hands trembled as I traced my swollen cheeks, the uneven patches of flesh where the injections had hardened into lumps beneath my skin. I looked like a wax figure left too close to the fire. People recoiled when they saw me. Strangers whispered behind my back. I stopped leaving my house, stopped answering the door, stopped looking into mirrors, and stopped everything. If you are reading this letter, then I have gone somewhere far away from here. My name is Han Mi-ok. Once, I dreamed of beauty. I longed for admiration, for the kind of allure that could captivate an entire room. I wanted to be loved, to be remembered, to be immortal in the eyes of the world. But now, all that remains of me is this letter and the reflection that haunts my mirror.
We're diving into a deeply personal testimony. It's the final written words of Han Mi-ok, and it details this, well, all-consuming and ultimately catastrophic pursuit of physical perfection.
Yeah, and this isn't just, a sad story. It really serves as an urgent case study.
Right.
Our goal here is to trace how this obsession developed and really understand the systemic failure that happened, when intense societal pressure meets these grossly unethical, frankly criminal medical practices.
So we need to unpack what drove her, what ultimately consumed her, and why this search for transformation just led to distortion, irreversible distortion.
Exactly.
Wait, let's unpack this journey then, starting at the root. Her initial perception of herself. Her testimony kicks off with a really painful statement. She says, "I've always hated myself. I was never a striking beauty."
Wow.
Yeah. She felt really crushingly that she was just plain unremarkable.
And what's immediately clear from the source is that this self-hatred, it wasn't vague. She'd completely absorbed these very specific, very rigid beauty standards, especially around the turn of the millennium, right? She felt her face lacked sharpness. Her eyes were too small, her jaw too round. She literally saw herself as invisible in a world where appearance felt like destiny, dictating social and even economic outcomes.
That sounds like more than just insecurity.
Oh, definitely. It strongly aligns with symptoms you'd see in severe body dysmorphia, where, a tiny or even just a perceived flaw becomes the absolute center of your self-worth.
And this deep sense of being inadequate was constantly being reinforced externally, wasn't it? It wasn't just in her head.
No, not at all.
She talks about casting directors dismissing her, saying specifically her face lacked definition. Which, well, that links directly to that ideal golden ratio face that the sources mentioned, right? That perfect symmetry and sharpness.
Precisely. But the source material also points to something culturally significant. The fortune tellers.
Ah, right. She actually sought them out.
She did, actively looking for predictions, for answers about her future. And they basically delivered the final judgment, confirmed her greatest fear, telling her face held no promise of fame, no fortune, that she simply did not have the destiny of a star.
And if you think about the culture back then, particularly in rapidly modernizing East Asia, those kinds of prophecies could carry enormous weight.
Huge weight. It wasn't just like a casual horoscope reading. This felt like destiny confirmed by, an authority figure. And it just echoed society's demands for this kind of physical perfection.
So it amplified the whole crisis for her.
Absolutely. I mean, if your face dictates your fate and yours is deemed inadequate, well, for someone in that desperate psychological state, the only conclusion seems to be change the face.
Use the face.
Fix the face. She completely internalized this idea that to reach her goals, it would take more than just a simple fix. And this decision, this commitment to extreme alteration, it happened before safe procedures were widespread. Cosmetic surgery was still pretty crude, as the source puts it.
So the mental verdict was reinforced externally, fueling this obsession that demanded a physical fix. And that desperation pointed her directly towards the next phase, didn't it? Section 2.
Yeah.
The injection disaster.
Yeah. She describes the place she went into a crude aesthetic clinic. It sounds like it lacked any real professional standards. She writes that she was naive, truly believing a scalpel could just carve out her destiny. And the doctor, well, sounds like he preyed on that naivety, that desperation, assured her beauty was just an injection away.
The whole setup sounds like a total breakdown of ethical medical practice.
Completely.
And the critical part is, she allowed him to inject her face with, well, she says substances I could not name.
She didn't even know what it was.
So focus on the outcome. The process just didn't matter as much at that moment. But here's where it gets truly horrifying. What did later clinics finally diagnose? What was the substance?
It's almost unbelievable. The diagnosis was cooking oil.
Cooking oil.
Not some dodgy, unregulated silicone, actual, kitchen-grade cooking oil.
Cooking oil. Just that simple fact really highlights the criminal nature of what she walked into. But let's talk about the physical consequences. Why is cooking oil so devastating when injected into facial tissue?
Okay, so this is really the core medical reason for why everything went so wrong later. Unlike proper medical-grade fillers, which are designed to be inert or maybe absorbed by the body,
Right.
and unlike even industrial silicones, which sometimes encapsulate, meaning they form a sort of shell and maybe can be surgically managed, cooking oil doesn't do that. It's a non-encapsulating foreign lipid, meaning when it's injected, it doesn't just sit there in a blob, it migrates. It seeps into and integrates deeply with all the surrounding soft tissues, the muscles, the fat, the connective tissue. It triggers this massive inflammatory reaction.
So it basically becomes part of her face structure.
Exactly. It becomes one with the natural tissue. And that's why when she went for help later, they told her removal was essentially impossible to remove completely.
Which explains why every attempt to fix it later was just doomed.
Absolutely. Though initially she did feel that thrill, didn't she? She mentions her skin stretching tight, her chin looking more defined. A brief moment of excitement.
Very brief,
Right.
tragically, because the nature of the oil meant the process didn't just stop there.
No. The source details this rapid descent into horror. Her face started to swell, grotesquely ballooning beyond recognition. The tightness she first liked became unbearable. Her skin was straining as if it would split. She talks about her cheeks puffing up unnaturally, her forehead bulging. Waking up each morning to find her reflection had twisted further into something monstrous.
And those changes became permanent, irreversible. When she finally sought proper help, the verdict was just terrifying. The oil's integrated. It was part of her tissue now.
Right.
But instead of accepting that, she entered this downward spiral of trying to get corrections. Knowing the first procedure was criminal, why keep going for more invasive surgeries?
Well, this really gets into the psychology of it, doesn't it? For someone dealing with that level of self-hatred and body image pressure, acceptance just isn't really on the table.
The physical result was a constant reminder of failure.
Exactly. A constant, unavoidable reminder. So every attempt to fix the damage wasn't logical. It was this desperate, compulsive attempt to regain control, to somehow reverse the disaster. But the underlying tissue was so compromised by the oil, every cut, every implant, it only made it worse.
And the source details the physical results of that spiral. Her skin, once tight, now sagged unevenly. Her cheeks became grotesquely large, lips stiff and misshapen. She even had cartilage implants to try and sharpen her nose, but they just made it thicken and distort even more.
Yeah, the distortion eventually reached a point where she was simply unrecognizable. Her features twisted into what the source calls a permanent grimace.
Awful.
And the physical disfigurement was quickly followed by the social cost, the rejection. She talks about one specific moment that seems to have really solidified her isolation.
The boyfriend.
Yeah. She writes about the horror in my boyfriend's eyes when he last visited. Apparently, he couldn't hide his disgust, and after that, he just stopped coming.
That's heartbreaking. And then the surgeons, too.
Eventually, yes. They saw the irreversible damage, the compounded problems from repeated surgeries on compromised tissue, and they refused to operate further. Delivering that final verdict, it's too late, nothing can be done.
Wow.
And that rejection, being told you're beyond even medical help, seems to have been the catalyst for the final, really tragic self-infliction. She couldn't bear the judgment anymore, the stares, the whispers, the disgust written on strangers' faces.
But instead of accepting, she sought another path,
Another desperate path, yeah. Back towards the ideal she still craved, even then.
which led her to the unregulated side of things again, the black market.
Exactly. She actively sought out syringes filled with liquid nightmares. That determination she had initially was still there, but completely detached now from any sense of logic or safety. She said she no longer cared what the substance was, only that it promised change.
And this final act, it really speaks volumes about the dangers when professional, ethical options disappear, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows the regulatory void. When the official channels close, desperate people turn to these dangerous black markets. And the substances there, they're often not even cooking oil. They can be industrial-grade silicone, mineral oils meant for machinery, stuff that's cheap, available, and completely unsuitable for the human body.
So she injected herself, alone. The result, as she describes it, is just devastating. Her face became a melting mask, like a wax figure left too close to the fire.
The total final destruction of her physical identity.
And that's where the cessation begins, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, she stopped leaving the house, stopped answering the door, and hauntingly, she stopped looking into mirrors. And finally, she writes, she stopped everything.
Her final letter is her legacy then, her attempt to find some meaning in it all. She wrote that she once dreamed of having the kind of allure that could captivate an entire room, that she just desperately wanted to be loved, to be remembered, to be immortal.
Such powerful desires. But the haunting reality she leaves us with is that if her letter's being read, she has gone somewhere far away from here. All that remains is the letter itself, and in her words, the reflection that haunts my mirror.
It's a complete and devastating narrative we get from these sources. What started as personal insecurity, fueled by intense cultural pressure for a certain kind of beauty, it just ended in this catastrophic, irreversible distortion. All because of a crude criminal procedure.
And this story forces us to confront not just Han Myokate's individual tragedy, but the systemic ethical failures. A society that prizes an often unattainable ideal so highly that it pushes desperate people right into the hands of criminals.
Yeah. The source details the incredible lengths she went to, just to avoid being unremarkable as she saw it. It really makes you think, what lasting societal protections are still missing today? What needs to be in place to prevent this kind of pursuit, this avoidance of the unremarkable, from becoming such a self-inflicted catastrophe? That's the question we want to leave you, the listener, with today.
Perhaps the most frightening thing isn't the images we witness, but the hidden message lurking behind them, the mirror it holds up to our own lives. Horror lingers because it speaks truths we'd rather not face. What did you think of this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if there's a horror animation you want me to analyze next, let me know below or send it my way. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tap super thanks to keep this dark journey alive. Until next time, stay in the shadows.